Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Aysén de General Carlos Ibáñez del Campo in Chile. You can see the sea in Chile. Kind of tells you how far south we are. It does have quite a mouthful of a name, but literally, as I was researching this, I saw absolutely nobody call it by that name. I only saw it, heard it, read it as Aysén. Its full official name is named after a former president of Chile, but from what I see, literally nobody calls it that. It is Aysén, as in ice and Aysén, because this place is quite icy indeed. This region is part of the Patagonian ice fields. The northern ice fields are primarily in this area, and just the beginnings of the southern ice fields are down here in the south. They extend farther south into some of the more famous glacial areas of Chile, like Torres del Paine and all of those beautiful glacial islands and mountains and things. But there are some stunning ones here. And as you can see, here in the Chagos archipelago, there are many, many fjords along the coast here of Chile. Now, what is a fjord? A fjord is when typically, I assume, an ocean or a very large body of water. There's one in the Mediterranean, actually. So a large body of water starts to come inland and creates these little channels here. Little narrow, almost like little roads going into the land. And these are the fjords. There's only so many places in the world where fjords occur. And one of them is Chile. They're really beautiful. I try to find some good pictures on Google Earth when we get to that segment to show you what the fjords look like, but up close it just looks like regular islands. It doesn't look like anything special. It's only really beautiful from above or from a very high elevation, which you can find a lot of in this region. There are some very, very high peaks, most of them glaciated, creating beautiful glacial lakes and moraines running down the sides. But what I think is very special about this area, for me personally, is that inland is so green and lush and wild, and it reminds me so much of northern California, where the redwoods are. It makes me feel like I'm at home. It's that looking through the pictures, it reminded me so much of the Pacific Northwest in the United States. And I thought, well, you know what? That's appropriate because we're still along the Pacific coast, just on the opposite side of the planet. So I figure that like there's just two zones, up north and down south, that creates just these beautiful, lush, wild forests. They're not humid and hot or anything. They are forests. And it's so green and so full of life, and streams and waterfalls and cliffs and all those things that remind me of California. So that makes me happy to see the wildlife here. And there are many national parks, as you can see. The largest is Nacional, or Parque Nacional Laguna de San Rafael here. Very, very huge glaciated zone. But there are many, many more. There's Magdalena, there's some in the islands here, and up along the inland areas, which is very important. And I'll go into history about why those national parks in particular are so important to Chile and to the world, to be honest, because they almost disappeared, and now they're protected. Getting into history, we start here in the islands, and a bit inland into the fjords here. This was the home of the Chono indigenous peoples. There were quite a few different indigenous communities, mainly along the coast, but the Chonos, as you can tell, their name was given to the islands here, are the more predominant ones in history, in world history. And as you can imagine, they were fishing people. They had canoes. Very, very coastal community there. So the Spanish arrived quite late, and understandably so, because there was a lot more happening up north and a lot more resources that they are very excited about, mainly gold, So when they did sail a bit farther south, exploring their new territory, they got as far as Chiloe Island, which you can see just peeking here. This is big Chiloe Island. They peeked around a little bit and saw how icy and mountainous and wild it was. And in 1520, they labeled it the Lands of December, which is a really beautiful name, isn't it? Until you think that, wait, we're in the southern hemisphere. December is their summertime. But, I don't know, it gives like Christmas Santa vibes, the Lands of December, doesn't it? It's still a very poetic name, the Tierra del Decembre. But then they didn't bother touching this area because it was too wild, too extreme, and too cold. In 1567, they conquered all the way down to the Chiloe archipelago here, and the Chiloe Islands, which are literally right there. I'm skipping a jump away across this channel here. So they were aware of the islands here. They would sail over every once in a while to get fish or timber, and they would interact with the indigenous people, but they didn't bother doing anything farther south than this area here. Mainly because they couldn't. It was too wild, too cold, and just it didn't look like it had any gold, right? So they weren't interested. But slowly but surely, different expeditions occurred here. Mainly at first it was missionaries coming to convert the peoples here, but they never really set up anything permanent, mainly because it was too difficult at the terrain, right? Later it became more scientific. Once Peru was independent, they started sending down scientific expeditions and missionaries too, of course. And what they did, kind of similar to what they did, what Lewis and Clark did, was they would come down to the islands here, find some indigenous people that would help them, and have them try to bring them more inland or try to explore the area here. But it was never really truly successful. I wonder if that's because the Chonos didn't want them coming down, but we'll never know, to be honest. I'll tell you why in a bit. The most successful expedition occurred in 1870, led by Enrique Simpson. I love Chilean names because many, many, many Europeans moved to the major cities of Chile during this time, like the 1800s. So you get a lot of people with very, very European-sounding last names, but very Spanish first names. It's great. I think it's so diverse. You get some of that in Argentina, too, but you get a lot of it in Chile. Nowadays, it's a lot of Chinese and Japanese names, but anyway. Enrique Simpson led an expedition, and he went quite far inland. They were trying to find a route that would maybe cut across here, so they wouldn't have to go all the way down Cape Horn. But that was not found, obviously. But he did quite a lot of exploring in the inland areas, and I don't know if I can see it on here, but it's somewhere around here, the Simpson River. I should have probably found it before I started filming, but I will show you on Google Earth. I'm trying to peer down at the map. There's so much happening down here, it's hard to read it. In 1881, the border between Chile and Argentina was officially established. It took quite a lot. There was a bit of a war. There was the War of the Pacific. And it took some mountaineering experts to go through the Andes here and figure out where Chile should end and Argentina should begin, and vice versa. But nonetheless, it was established here. And that paved the way for immigration, now that this was officially, unofficially Chilean land. And many, many people came to this area, mainly again from European countries, to start a new life. So settlers really didn't arrive until the early 20th century, establishing little tiny communities on the islands, but mostly inland. There was an interesting conflict in this city here, Chile Chico, Little Chile. It's called the Chile Chico War, but it wasn't a war. It was like a very violent, deadly disagreement between some of the European immigrants and what land they could own. Quite a bit of that happening in the southern Chile, to be honest. I was reading about some that happened a little bit farther north from here, but for the most part, settlers came, established their own homesteads, and in order to build the farmland they needed, they set fire to the beautiful, beautiful forests here to clear land as quickly as they could, and started severely, severely damaging the landscape. Oh, I should note that it was around a bit earlier than this time that the Chono indigenous peoples became extinct. And I never really saw a reason why, other than assimilation with the Chileans and other immigrants, mixing and creating a mestizo kind of culture, and losing anyone who was like 100% Chono. But it was probably also all of the regular hallmarks of disease and maybe violence, or even just relocation. I know some were relocated to missions farther north against their will, or maybe they went willingly. I didn't read, but we can assume, right? But there are no more. Very sad. And in 1927, the president of Chile, Carlos Ibáñez del Campo, declared this area an official territory, region, what have you, of Chile, which was the last part of Chile to join the country. Even further south in Tierra del Fuego, they had already joined Chile, and even their area in Antarctica was part of Chile before Aysén was, which I think is interesting. There's this big chunk that was just the wilderness, but now it's part of Chile, and the whole coastline belongs to the country. And that's pretty much where we are today. I tried combing for anything happening more recently in the past 20-30 years or so. I didn't find anything too relevant. But let me know, Chilean viewers, my wonderful Chilean viewers, if I missed anything, let me know down in the comments, okay? But with that being said, let's head over to the tablet so that I can show you this gorgeous, gorgeous landscape. So here we are at Aysén, you can see there. Aysén del General. Oh, I forgot it. General. Anyway. Carlos Ibáñez del Campo. Got it. I'm going to start by zooming out to show you exactly where we are in the world. So as you can see, we are in the south of South America. Antarctica is just a hop, skip, and a jump away. And we are here along the Pacific coast. You can see the mountains and fjords from space here, can't you? You can see the southern Patagonia ice field there. No, sorry, the southern Patagonia ice field and the northern Patagonia ice field there. And look at all the islands that are highlighted here. So many. We can look closely into these fjords. So anytime the large body of water, mostly the ocean, comes into the land and creates all these channels here, all these little passageways, those are fjords. And they're so beautiful, aren't they, from above? So incredible. So many little islands. Why don't we start on the islands? Let me put this down. Let's see. I think this was a good slideshow. Yes, because we can see the penguins. And penguins are my favorite birds. I think these are Humboldt penguins by their stripes. I think Magellanic penguins have a little more to their faces, but I could be wrong. It's kind of hard to see. I can't zoom in. They might be Magellanic if I could see their faces a little better. I can't tell. One of my hyperfixations as a child was penguins, and I memorized every penguin species because it's me. But here we are in the beautiful fjords. So like I said, it just kind of looks like a regular coastline when you're actually in them, right? But you can see how stunning they are from above. Look at this waterfall coming down. The beautiful nature, the tree lines, the little village here. Is that saying don't swim? Or something? I wouldn't get in this water if I were you. It's freezing cold. But yeah. It gives me kind of Alaska vibes, Aysén does, because it's the least populated region of Chile. You've got all this beautiful nature, all of the beautiful ice, the beautiful mountains. It's very much like Chile's Alaska, but far, far more forested. Forested like Washington, but as remote as Alaska. Let's check out some of these forests. Let's head down to the park. Parque Nacional Laguna San Rafael. And here we can see a big old glacier here. And these caves. This is like the region when you Google Aysén, you get this cave area. And you can tell by the water, this is a glacial lake. I was at the gym with my brother-in-law, and they got these new bikes that have TVs in front of them, and you can like go on bike paths around the world. So of course I picked one in Chile because I was knee deep in researching this place, and we biked around Torres del Paine. Look at this waterfall. So I was telling him about the landscape of Patagonia, and I said, if the water is the color of blue Gatorade, it's a glacial lake. And he's like, oh, okay. Because he's like, how do you know it's a glacial lake if you don't see the glaciers? I'm like, look at that water. It's this color. Literally the color of blue Gatorade. That's how you know. It was a fun bike ride, but man, those little bike seats were too tiny. It's so uncomfortable. I love the waterfalls. Look at this ice field here. My goodness. Like a frozen over glacial lake, it looks like. Yeah, see that Gatorade blue water? Glacial lake. That water came from a melted glacier down the mountains, down the moraines. This is a moraine here. Like a big snail trail from a glacier coming down into the water. And moraines are fun. Isn't that a beautiful glacier? Because some of them actually look like trails that someone actually carved out and made paths in, but it's just glaciers melting as they do. We can also look at the Patagonia National Park, which I think goes further south. But it's more of the same beautiful, beautiful pictures. That's the thing about this region is that, oh, look at the guanacos. I could show you so many pictures of nature, but they're going to start to get repetitive, so there's only so much I'm going to show you, but absolutely stunningly gorgeous. We were looking at the guanacos too on our little bike ride because there are so many. And my brother-in-law goes, what in the world is a guanaco? Isn't that a llama? And I said, no, this is not a llama. And it's funny because we were just talking about vicuñas when we were in Peru like a week or so ago. So vicuñas are teeny tiny little guys. Guanacos are the big version of a vicuña. They always have the same patterns. Llamas and alpacas always have different colors and patterns. Guanacos always have the same, and they are about the size of a llama or alpaca, whereas vicuñas are like half the size. And they're everywhere. They're like the deer here. They're all over the place. Beautiful cave here with the glacial water. Now you know how to tell a glacial lake. Look at this formation here. Do you see that? That is natural from what I can tell. Looks huge. Is that a person right there? Goodness, do you think that was a volcanic plug? Do you think? My goodness. Very impressive. You can see this lake going into Argentina. I looked at all the little towns here as well. They have some nice slideshows, but nothing too exciting to show you. Not even in the capital, which I forgot to tell you. Is Koi Haike here. Koi Haike, which is a very quaint little town. It seems like it's the kind of town that, you know, you would fly into and gear up for your mountaineering expeditions and adventures. Obviously it's a settlement, obviously it's busy, and obviously it's the capital of the region. There's some neat monuments here too to this herder. But it definitely looks like the main purpose of this town is for tourists to come and get all of their supplies ready to head out into the wilderness. A lot of these towns are. I need to show you, I think it was over here. Not this one, but that's really pretty too. Right here. This was my favorite slideshow. Queulat National Park. I have no idea how to pronounce that, but isn't this the most beautiful picture of nature you've ever seen in your life? This looks like, it almost looks AI, doesn't it? It almost looks like, give me a mountain canyon with too many waterfalls. And there you go. It's like Yosemite eats your heart out. Look at this place. My goodness, that's stunning. River there, coming down from the mountains, and there's so much to hike and explore. Look at this waterfall. Absolutely gorgeous. And you can hear this picture, can't you? Look at that. Coming down into the lake there from the top of the mountains. And see this. This reminds me of Redwood Forest. This reminds me of Sequoia National Park. Just little tiny trails, all mapped out and safe. And it's easy to walk through, but you're just surrounded by just green, thick wilderness. It's so beautiful. Look at this water. It's so gorgeous. This is beautiful beyond words, I think. I don't know how else to describe it. It's so lovely. Little boat launch. We're gonna go out on the lake. Nice distant view there. Ooh, misty morning, even more like California, where I'm from in San Francisco. It's so gorgeous. Look at the snow coming down, all little frozen streams. And that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I can't get enough. I spent maybe like 2 hours combing through all the different slideshows here. That's my favorite one by far. But it makes me feel like, you know, if I had to relocate to Chile immediately, I think I'd be going down to Coyhaique. Look at this glacier. My goodness, that's a big one. My goodness, goodness, goodness. Look at this. Like this could be a picture from California easily. So stunning. It's very few places in the world that you get for this just lush and thriving. It reminds me of like the forests in Poland. Oh, that's nice. Where else? Oh, here's a big moraine. Look at this. Look at that. Big old path there that the glacier's carving out itself. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I would just be here for hours, just soaking this in, being like, how is this real? How is this a real place? Yeah, as much as I'm a city girl, you know, I love San Francisco. I love city life. And as much as I'd love to, you know, if I had to forcefully relocate to Chile, if I'm in witness protection and they say go to Chile, as much as I'd love to go to Santiago or Valdivia, I probably want to come here. It's just, I can't get enough. I've had the most fun researching this region. You guys know I love Chile. I love all the pictures in Chile. It's so much fun to see and look through, but I've had the most fun looking through this one. Absolutely, absolutely. So I highly, highly encourage you, if you ever want to play on Google Earth in any region, head down here to Chile's fjords and just go nuts. Why don't we end the video in this town? This was the very first town established in Aysén, Milinka. And it's nice and little quaint, little seaside town. Kind of reminds me of Norway or Iceland. I guess this place kind of does have Norway and Iceland vibes, doesn't it? With all the fjords. But, yeah, big mermaid. I'm going to end it here. Why do mermaids have mammary glands? I've always wondered. They're fish, they're not mammals. Why would they need mammary glands? I digress. Look at this town. How fun would that be to visit? But thank you so much for watching. My neighbor upstairs also thumping around. They also thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. I should have shown you Chiloe Island here. But anyway, please consider subscribing. This is an ongoing series on my channel. And next we're going to be heading over to Pakistan to look at some more gorgeous mountains, even higher and snowier than these. The Himalayas. Of course, I'm talking about the Himalayas. We are going to be visiting one of the most disputed regions in the world. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good